It's like fucking 114 out, so I don't know if the heat's helping at all.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Are you staying in Vegas or are you going to up north again?
I mean, I live here. I'm staying here for the
Yeah.
foreseeable future. But I've got some trips planned and stuff to break up the heat, but it's brutal for sure.
Is Reno any cooler or is it like near the same?
It's like, I mean, you might get a day that dips into the hundreds, but it's usually in like the 90s at its hottest.
For sure.
Did you guys climb recently? Did you guys get out? Woodson?
I think the last time we climbed was when I took the ankle biter. But that was
what happened to you?
It's called Hard as Nails at Mount Woodson. It's like a really hard boulder problem, like right off the ground.
Yeah.
And it's like 10 feet of crux, and so you can't really like place through the crux. And I've red pointed this thing like 5 times at least, and for some reason I just botched the sequence, and I was like maybe like 8 feet off the deck, 6 feet off the deck, and I just came off and landed really hard on my heel and just bruised to the bone, I think. So it's like just not recovering.
Yeah. Bummer. Well, could be a lot worse, man.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I was scared when I came down, like it hurt. And I was like, oh, that's the first time I've ever like actually hurt my feet.
So when are you guys going to climb the Hulk?
Late July. So my birthday is the 27th of July. And I typically try to do something alpine-y for that every year. So
nice.
Got had the permits. I thought I was going to cancel on it, to be honest, because of like Yosemite and not being sure what I wanted to do. But then I was like, yeah, I'm stoked, so I'm gonna do it. And then hit up Kyle, and that's how that happened.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I was super psyched to see that message come through. It's been on my tick list for like 6 years probably. And I've just like, it's never lined up. I've even scouted out the hike and everything, gone up there. It's like so massive.
Such a cool feature.
Yeah.
That's a really inspiring piece of rock. I've seen a video of Peter Croft climbing this route up there. I think it's his like,
solar
route,
flare.
his FA. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It was like so beautiful and so cool. And Peter's also just like the man. So it was like that just like put like the idea in my head of the Hulk, very inspiring.
Yeah, I want to get revenge because the last time I was there was like the worst climbing experience I've ever had.
What happened?
It was just windy, like the windiest trip I've ever been on, like nonstop, like all night, no sleep, like ran out of water on the, just a bunch of dumb stuff like that could have been avoided and then on top of that windy, which you're just like pissed and cold. Yeah. The climb went fine and everything, but just like the enjoyment level was like 0. So
you also said that the climbing itself wasn't that inspiring, right?
Yeah, we did the easiest climb on the feature, and it's obviously not the best. So positive vibrations will be way better
for sure. Everybody I talked to about that climb is just like, dude, get on it,
Yeah.
And the one thing I've learned, I say this a lot on this podcast, but the one thing I've learned climbing with like people that are climbing harder than me, like, is that like even on the original route on the Rainbow Wall and some like Cloud Tower out here, like, yes, the crux pitch has like a move or two. It's like, okay, yeah, that was 12A. The entirety of the rest of the climb was like relatively cruiser.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that that's, the case on positive, where it's like you got the 11 crux and like the rest of it's like, good 10 climbing, but it's not, you get scared by the grade or you get scared by the magnitude or whatever. But I've come across most of the time where it's like, wow, you're surprised at how fluid it went instead.
Yeah,
of
I think PV positive vibrations has like 2 little cruxes and the rest is like maybe 10 plus, like 10C, like a pitch here or there. But the 10, I remember because I've done the first 3 pitches and like the 10C pitch 2 or 3 or whatever was like super chill, I thought. And then the 11A crux I on-sighted at the time, and so I was feeling good. But we bailed because it was getting dark. That was like the day we hiked in. We just went up to check it out because we had time. So
there's 2 11A cruxes, right?
Yeah, the second one's the hard one.
The hard one, yeah. I heard it's easier for tall people, so I'll take that pitch. What?
There you go.
Awesome, guys. Well, yeah, I mean, welcome back to the Climbing Majority Podcast, everybody. We're sitting down here with Bryce and Evan, two veterans of the show, which is pretty cool. Separate conversations, but they're here together because they've done something pretty extraordinary. Climbing the nose on El Cap, I think it speaks for itself. That's something that we all think about when we first get into climbing. It's like, I'm going to go climb that, and we don't really have any idea what that statement even means. And, I've been climbing with Bryce, for several years now. And it's just really cool to see, people in my social circle go and achieve something like that. I think that it's just a pure representation of this podcast and the Climbing Majority, and just some of the raddest things that we can accomplish just being everyday recreational climbers, weekend warriors with full-time jobs and kids. It's just really inspiring, your guys' story. So I'm psyched to have you guys on the show.
Thanks for having us. Yeah. Good to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty massive. I think the best way to dissect this, we can just if you guys want to hear about Bryce or you want to hear about Evan and you want to hear about their stories, go back a couple episodes and look for their episodes. We'll do the links in the bio so you can find them. But today I want to really focus on just this objective, the nose on El Cap. I want to dive into it. And I think the first best way to start that is to honestly talk about how that idea started and what made you believe you could do it and what that prep was like before even touching the wall for the first time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like a lot of people these days, when I first got into climbing, that was like the biggest inspiration that I had. Is it just towers so tall. You hear about so many great stories. There's so much lore behind it, so much rich history. And so I remember when I first started climbing, I put out a post on Facebook, something along the lines of, my greatest aspiration is to be surrounded by a vertical ocean of the most beautiful rock and just fully immersed into the adventure of climbing the nose of El Capitan. Or I think it was really anything on El Capitan at the time. And I don't think I ever really thought that it was going to happen, but I knew I wanted it really bad. And so I think all of my climbing since I started has always kind of been with the intention of hoping to do that one day. And, I think I've been climbing for about maybe 5 years now. And year after year, it started actually feeling more realistic. And it helps when you have a really great climbing partner that you can trust, who's also on that same level and is equally inspired. It just kind of manifested itself. And it was actually Bryce invited me to climb the nose. He's been trying to go for it for a couple of years now and hasn't quite had the opportunity. And I always told myself, I'm getting on it no matter what, but the person that I would prefer to climb it with would be Bryce. And the opportunity came up and I jumped on it. And there's a lot of anxiety leading up to from the moment that we made the plans to actually climbing it, and a lot of fears. But it's I was so inspired, nothing was going to stop it.
Bryce, as the visionary for this send, what was the moment where you were just this is possible and I'm going to do this? Because I think that there's a huge step there, it's you can joke about it, you can talk about it, but then there's actually making that decision of I'm taking this seriously because I believe I can do it.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember when I first got inspired by the nose. I probably truly got inspired when I went to Yosemite again for the first time as a climber. And I didn't even climb that trip. I went with my wife and another couple of friends of ours. Nobody else was climbing. But I just, you just drive in, tunnel view, you see the nose and you're just oh my gosh, that is, as a climber, you're that is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. That rock is just perfect and huge and daunting and just awe-inspiring. So I think that was when I first got inspired by it, obviously watching all the classic films like Free Solo and Dawn Wall and Valley Uprising, all those just get you stoked on such a classic route too. But the moment I knew I was capable was so when my previous partner that I was trying to do it with, this is June 2 years ago, he and I were free climbing partners, and he was getting stoked on big balling right when I was kind of oh, you know what? I think I might want to learn that, but I had always kind of just put it off because it seemed too much logistical, nightmare, dealing with all this stuff. I just kind of never appealed to me until I had a partner who got stoked on it, and I was okay, cool, yeah, I'll get into it. So he gave me like a big wall book, hooking up, I think. And I just dove in like full, went it full super deep. And then he and I went out there. This was June, so it was like 95 degrees. It was baking hot, but we went and did west face leaning tower, and we just crushed it. Like it was a breeze. And as soon as we got off that, I was like, okay, dude, like, and the whole purpose of doing that was to get ready for the nose. But as soon as we got back from that, like we walked to the base of the nose, like later that same trip. And I was just like, I don't care that it's 95 and I got to go back to work and all this, like, let's go right now. Like, I knew from that moment I was ready. And then a lot of stuff happened where my partner, got injured right before our trip. And then he ended up kind of losing interest in big walling. So that's why it took me a couple of years. And, but yeah, I knew from then I was going to do it. And, I got 2 young kids, like I've probably mentioned in the last episode. So it wasn't the ideal time to get re-stoked to do it. But, yeah, I had a finger injury and that kind of put me out of free climbing for a little bit. And I was like, well, I could still big wall. So, that's when the dream got revived, probably like early this year, I think. And that's when I talked you into doing it. So we made our plans, and Evan and I had already had plans to climb in El Cap in May. And Evan and I had just been crushing it together and having a really good season in Joshua Tree. So I was just like, you know what, dude, like let's just do the nose. Like, why not? Like we're crushing it. And I think that's when we were like, oh, cool, like let's do this. And yeah.
Sick. What was the experience like? I think you told me a little bit about it before, but when your partner bailed, wasn't it like 12 hours before you guys were supposed to do it?
Yeah, it was
what
like,
was that like?
Like we were supposed to leave on like a Sunday night or a Friday night or something, and it was literally like the night before. And my immediate family and like my parents were planning to go, and like my in-laws were planning to go. It was this huge ordeal. We had like reservations at Curry Village and all this stuff. And like 24 hours before we were supposed to leave, he like calls me and was like, hey dude, I hurt my wrist, or yeah, so I can't go. I was like, wow. And I just like, I was with my wife and my in-laws at the time, and I just like went inside and started crying. Like I just broke down. I was like so stoked on this trip.
Yeah.
And like 24 hours before it was like my dreams got taken away from me. So that was rough for sure. It's a lifetime goal of mine. Once I was standing at the base after that June trip, like I was talking about, and I knew I could do it, then it was like, then the lifetime dream became a goal and a reality. So it was definitely crushing when that happened. But
do you feel like there was some sort of lesson there, or do you feel like the universe protected you from some sort of injury on that climb?
I would definitely go with the universe protecting it. Maybe it just wasn't the right time. Like I've had full faith and confidence in that partner. He was a great partner. So it wasn't like it was a bad situation, but maybe there was something going on that it shouldn't have happened then. Because
that wasn't the same time where that like rock split on El Cap and the new crack formed or anything, was it?
No.
Didn't like some guy like send that crack and then they like shut it down?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's wild.
So if you're like starting back a little bit, like you have this, monumental goal, you have this build up going into this thing, like what's square one for actually getting ready to do this? Like were you focused more on like, how am I going to train for this? Or was it logistics and planning oriented, or permits? Like maybe like start off there for someone who's like, like Evan, right? Like looking at photos and videos of this just magnificent, inspiring piece of rock. Like how did you start your journey for that when it was like really a thing?
I think like looking at the topo, checking out each pitch, focusing on like the money pitches that are most inspiring. For me, it's like I can get inspired, but I have a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear with climbing. And so for me to like commit to something that I'm inspired by and so terrified of, I really have to figure out what I'm most excited about and really just hyper focus on it. So that the anxiety, basically it overshadows like the anxiety, even though the anxiety is like always there anyways. I think a big part of it too was like I wanted to know that I was capable of being a big wall climber. And, I think I mentioned in my last podcast, I was originally most inspired climbing wise to do ground up big wall FAs. I still don't know if that's ever going to happen if I have it within me, but I know that would be a good stepping stone, would be, climbing the nose of El Capitan. Yeah. And then I think the fact that, it was Bryce specifically who asked me if I wanted to climb the nose also was a big part of it too. It's like, that's always really inspiring. And so we started talking about like endurance. You want to climb the nose, you need endurance. You can take a week, but do you really want to take a week? Do you want to haul that much water and that much gear and just have to haul that much in general? So endurance was a big one for me. And then I feel like freeing as much as you can is pretty important. So focusing on a good Joshua Tree season, 10-5-9s, 10-5-10 days. I never thought I was capable of that. And once, Bryce and I actually pulled that off, I think Bryce was far more capable than I was. I don't think there was any doubt in his mind he was going to be able to, but I think neither of us were really sure if I was going to be able to. And once I realized that I could, it was like I started feeling more confident about it. Like, this is a reality. This is something that will actually happen, even though I didn't end up freeing nearly as much as I thought I would on the nose, which apparently is pretty typical for a lot of people. And then dialing the systems. There are a lot of logistics to it. Rope management, feeling the endurance of like Jumaring and like being able to Jumar efficiently, hauling, and then being willing to like get kind of crappy sleep, sleeping on ledges and stuff. I don't know. I remember Bryce and I years ago, one day, we had plans to go to El Cajon Mountain, and he's like, calls me up at like 9:00 at night. He's like, hey, why don't we just go tonight? It was like really late at night. He's like, we could just go sleep on Commander Ledge. I hear that it could hold 4 people. That was my first time ever sleeping on a ledge. It does not hold 4 people, maybe standing up. It's a sloping ledge. Worst sleep I ever got, but also the most beautiful bivvy, at that time. And it was really inspiring. So yeah, I'd say that there was like a lot of preparation before I ever even made plans, but also once we made the plans, I would say the biggest thing for me was like endurance.
Specifically like physical and climbing endurance?
Yeah, just being in good physical shape, hiking. I would go back a little further. I to answer the question myself is like, I just hit the book. Like, if you're talking like as far as like how from when I like went, hey, maybe I could big wall, to like actually getting on the nose, the first step for me was definitely like knowledge, like, and just accumulating as much knowledge as I could, like read front to back, reading one of these like 300-page big wall tomes, like takes forever, but when you're stoked, it like was cool reading. And so that was huge. And then watching lots of videos for systems, and then just training, like practicing your systems. Like we have quarry wall down here at El Cajon Mountain, and that was invaluable for before I did west face of Leaning Tower also. But it's just like a bolt ladder, and you just learn how to lead a bolt ladder in your aiders, and then learn how to Jumar, and then do that 3 times, and then do that 5 times, and then do that 10 times, and you're like, oh my gosh, this sucks, but this is what a big wall is probably going to be like. So and then there's other like routes that are big wall oriented, like a follower problem, and so you can learn how to do your lower outs and lower out the bag, and it's really just about technique and systems. And once you're on the wall, it doesn't matter whether you're on pitch 1, 10, or 30, like it's all the same. It's just this, it's like doing a multi-pitch climb. Like, doesn't matter if you're 1 pitch off the ground or 10 pitches off the ground, you're doing the exact same system, the exact same thing. It's just repeat, and eventually you're done. So definitely a lot of studying, a lot of training, trying to be in good shape. And then, picking a good partner, taking in as much like beta info as you can from whether it's people's comments or trip reports, or, there's lots of different techniques and ways to do it. So you kind of got to like pick and choose who you think is giving the best advice. And But yeah, at the end of the day, you just got to keep moving up. Like you, one pitch after the other, you got to try to move as fast as you can, and don't go down. That's what they say. Bail up.
Yeah, don't be
Bail
discouraged
up.
by the first day.
Bail up. Yeah.
Bail up.
How many days do you think you guys spent out collectively practicing systems together before you went after this?
A dozen maybe, or more.
For me, I think it was a couple dozen because I needed to get into shape a bit more than Bryce. Bryce is in better shape than me. So like for instance, Quarry Wall, I went with Bryce a few times, but I ended up hanging a rope up there, and I would just go there after work because it's like 15 minutes from my work. And for a while, I was trying to do 10 laps up. I think it's like maybe 110 feet, maybe at the most. So I tried to do like 10 laps, and then eventually I was like doing 15. Ultimately, I wanted to do like 20. I was like, oh, if I could jug the same amount of pitches of El Cap, then I can probably, lead some of it, or at the very least, like be in good enough shape for it. So yeah, if he did a dozen, I'd say for me, maybe a couple of dozen.
Yeah, as far as like your systems go, once you kind of have it down, nothing really changes, but you can get faster at it each time. So it's like, it's amazing how like little tiny incremental like revelations, like each time you go, you think you know exactly how to do the same thing over and over, but each time you go, you're like, oh, I just learned this tiny little tip or trick, and that saves me like 2 minutes here and 10 minutes there, and that just, I think that adds up. But yeah, I'd say between like 8 actual like C1 aid practicing at like Mount Woodson, and then bolt ladder and 8 follower problem at Quarry Wall, I'd say, yeah, at least a dozen between the two, like where we were together doing it too. So
I kind of considered my whole season at Joshua Tree to be training for the nose, to be honest, just because I always felt like it would, if I was a 5'10 climber, like pretty solid at 5'10, then I would have a better chance of being able to free more stuff, or at least just being in better shape and being more efficient. And so, yeah, that like had a big impact on me having a good season for sure.
Yeah, freeing or French freeing or whatever technique you want to do, but just not like actually aiding every single move is going to be the best thing and the biggest time saver. Like I've watched some videos of people and they're like aiding every single move, and you're like, this looks so brutal, and like I can't imagine. No wonder it took so long, or like why there's traffic jams and stuff. Which I hope we can get into, like the actual what we actually encountered.
No, we
while
will.
we were
For
climbing.
sure.
Because we got really lucky. I think the way we planned it was just it went really well as far as like not getting stuck behind people. But yeah, if you can just free as much as you can, you're gonna move like 5 times faster and save yourself a lot of headache.
I mean, that makes sense. I think it's always going to be faster than standing on gear every 5 feet.
Yeah,
Especially on low angle terrain or stuff that like absolutely makes no sense.
Yeah, and it's just so much more fun to like free as much as you can, and you get like a little out of breath, you get to a hard move, and you're like, okay, cool, I can just stand in my aider, like I don't have to free this. But then like transitioning back to freeze, can be kind of hard, but if you can get back into it, then you just keep moving.
So like logistically, like how many days did you guys plan on being on the wall?
So we were planning for 3.5 days, and that's pretty much what we did. We got so we were planning to leave Sunday morning really early at like 4 a.m. so we could get to the valley by like noon, let's say. And then we were going to do our first half day that Sunday, like the same day we got into the valley. But I spaced it for some reason about needing an timed entry. And so we couldn't actually go into the park until 4 p.m. because the like peak hours are 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. So you have to go in before or after that if you don't have a timed entry. So I was like, well, I guess we can sleep in till like 8. And then we tried to time it so we got there like right at 4, which happened to be like perfect. We were like 2 minutes before the 4 o'clock cutoff, and they like let us in. Which there's like a half-hour line to get in at that point. So it was like really good timing. We were lucky there. But then we like cruised in the valley. We went straight to El Cap turnover. We got our permit, and then we just like kind of scoped it out, and we were trying to see, there was some fixed lines from Sickle. So we were like, okay, well, let's just go to the base, we'll take all of our climbing gear, we'll haul our water, and then we'll just lead up to Sickle with an extra rope so that we can fix back down to the ground. And if no one's sleeping up on Sickle, which most people don't because it's not that great of a ledge, then we'll just go back to the car, we'll grab all of our stuff, and we'll haul and sleep at Sickle, which is what we ended up doing. So it took us about 3 hours to lead up to Sickle and then to wrap back down. We went and grabbed the rest of our gear. We brought it to the base. We hauled it up, and then we ended up like setting up camp at like midnight on Sunday night.
I think we went to sleep at like 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it was kind of a late night.
Yeah.
So you guys showed up to the valley and got to Sickle Ledge on the first day.
Yeah,
like the same.
So we
day.
Just
rolled
to clarify, Bryce led all the pitches up to Sickle. He was very.
How are those 11B slab pitches?
There was one move I wouldn't call it 11B slab pitches. I would call it one 11B slab move on otherwise like pretty free climbable.
Did you aid through it or did you pull it off?
I aided. I freed up to that move, and then I aided past that. There's also like one move where you need a hook, and I think we had it, and I just didn't have it on me. So I had to free that. I don't know what the move is. It's probably like 5'10", but I was like, oh yeah, how would somebody aid this? And there's just like a little drilled hole that you can put your hook in.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I feel like that was a pretty uneventful first night of at least like getting to Sickle and then hauling up there. And then we had G7 pods, so we slept at Sickle on those, and it was great. But then since you're so close to the ground, you like 4:30 rolls around in the morning, and there's already like Naiad people going past you while you're asleep. And so we went to bed at 1:30, woke up at 4:30 to like our first Naiad party. And after that, I was just like, well, I'm awake. And so I think Evan slept like another 30 minutes or an hour or something. And then by then there was already people like forming a line at the base. And so I was like, dude, like, let's go. There was already like 3 or 4 parties at the base by like sunrise. And so we're like, let's just pack up, let's get out of here and start moving, because that's where you really can get slowed down, is like going through stove legs and all that. So
going through what was it you can get slowed down in?
The stove legs.
So yeah, real quick, we're already on Sickle Ledge. I feel like we found ourselves here really fast.
Yeah.
I got one question real quick. I want to clarify the permit system for people, because I think that it came out in the news and everyone's like, "What? I need a permit to be on the wall." And then the only system they are aware of is like the wilderness permits that you need to get for Whitney and stuff, and that's kind of like a complicated lottery system. So how does that differ to like trying to be on El Cap?
Yeah, so I mean, the permits are super simple. It's awesome. It's just self-registration. There's a little kiosk at El Cap turnover, so like at the El Cap bridge. You just walk up, take out a permit, fill it out, put it in the box, and you're good to go. Carry it with you. There's no quotas, so it's not like they limit the amount of people. They just want to know that you're up there. So
Gotcha.
So yeah, Evan filled that out, and my wife framed it for him and gave it to him as a souvenir. So that was really pretty
awesome.
Cool.
Nice. I think I saw that post. That's really dope.
That was really nice of him.
Yeah, just before we like dive into this whole kind of route, I just have a couple more questions if maybe we can lock this in. So you said you were in G7 pods. So for someone who's listening doesn't know that, my understanding is like those are those new lightweight like it's made of fabric for like your portaledge, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And was that 2 singles or like a double? How does it work?
No, they're singles. So it's literally just an air mattress with straps, but it's really reinforced, so it doesn't. Is
it like made of Dyneema? Like how strong are these bad boys?
It's just like a super durable air mattress that you can like stand on and poke and rub around, and but I mean, I slept pretty good every night. I'm a fan. They're
nice.
Super expensive and very bougie. So
I don't think I'd want it on like an overhanging, big wall route or something that's just straight vertical the whole way. There might be certain situations that it's more appropriate for, such as if you have like a ledge that's not extremely comfortable, you can make it a lot more comfortable. Honestly, it felt kind of bougie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like glamping on the wall because
And you don't need any poles or anything as well too, right? So you're like saving weight. I'm guessing the packability is better.
the combined weight, like, so each pod I think is, don't quote me on this, but like a couple pounds.
Yeah.
So, and if you think about it, like the BD, I think is the Black Diamond's like the heaviest. It's like 20 pounds. So compare a 20-pound portaledge to two pound ledges. That's like 4 pounds. And then on the ledge, you're probably bringing a sleeping pad also, which is like another pound each. So if you're doing a wall like the nose where it's mostly low angle and there's plenty of natural ledges, then the G7 pod just adds like a nice, you can like flatten any ledge I guess. So if you're on a super steep overhanging wall where there's no ledges and you have to like cook and go to the bathroom and sleep and do everything on your ledge, then it would make more sense to bring like a full double aluminum framed ledge. But if you're doing like an alpine wall or something like the nose that has natural ledges, then I think the G7 is just like a luxury good.
That's awesome, man. Yeah.
And from what I understand, you can also like put them next to each other, or you can do like bunk beds with a rain fly, like a single rain fly, which is kind of cool. Not that we needed to do that.
Yeah, we had awesome weather. We had rain flies as well, but which we did bring just in case, but we didn't, never used them.
Nice. And so like how much water did you bring? Like I'd love to just knock out some of these like logistics before we like dive into the climbing, and then we just kind of have like a well-rounded idea of like what you guys are like, how you're self-sufficient, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we so I think we just aimed for a gallon each per day. So 3.5 days, a gallon each. That's 7 gallons is I think what
so gallons, 4.4 liters, I think, right? Or
yeah,
something like that?
4.2 or 4.4, something like that.
Okay, gotcha.
Close.
Yeah.
So yeah, 4 liters a day each. We ended up running out of water because somebody forgot to pack one of the like gallons.
That wasn't my fault.
So you had 3, you had 7?
Well, actually, so we only brought 6 because that first day we climbed and then went back to the ground. And so we were bringing 6 or maybe 6.5. I think it was 6.5 was what we were trying to bring for like the nighttime plus then 3 days.
Yeah.
But somehow one of the gallons didn't make it to the base.
I saw Bryce secretly take it out while I wasn't looking. He just wanted me.
Yeah, he just chugged it behind the car before you guys went to the base.
But by run out of water, I mean, like we had water all the way to the top, and then we just like had to hike down without much water. So
Yeah.
I remember saying something along the lines of, we shouldn't bank on it, but I bet there's a good chance there might be some water stashed at the top. Sure enough, there was some sort of liquid stashed at the top, but it was pretty sus looking. It was like the last hour we ran out, basically, which ended up being a pretty rough hour.
yeah.
Did you guys drink the sus water?
Yeah.
Oh, Bryce did?
There was a perfectly good gallon that like near Zodiac, the top of Zodiac, and we both took a little of that, but we didn't drink the sus liquid that was at the top. No.
Couldn't tell if it was Gatorade or something else.
Yeah, don't drink the yellow Gatorade.
Yellow.
Don't
water.
ever drink. Yeah. That's like, that should be a rule. You should never be able to pee into a Gatorade bottle,
Nah.
No.
especially if you rip off the label.
We can get into this later, but I had to repurpose my Nalgene as a poop tube on one of the pitches.
Oh,
Why did you overflow the initial bag?
Well, that's another story we could talk about.
We learned some lessons.
No, but going back to logistics, we brought the 2 G7s, we brought a couple haul bags, we brought 6.5 gallons of water, sleeping bags, extra clothes, food. We brought way too much food. I don't know how.
yeah. Let's talk about food.
Yeah. What were you planning on eating in a day? Like, did you plan out your calories, or was it more like, okay, what
I
so
did.
What was that?
I think I was aiming for like 5,000 a day, which, because I backpack and I typically go for like 4,000 to 5,000 a day while I'm backpacking, and I figured I'd be burning at least that much big walling. but I don't know. Somehow, like I swear we had like 3 extra days worth of food when we finished,
Wow.
and I ate food and snacks the whole time. So I don't know if
Yeah.
like I just don't know what happened with the food because I'm very detail oriented, and I know I had like 3 extra days of food. It was crazy.
Yeah, I had a lot of extra food too. I personally don't calorie count. I really should start doing that. For me, that's actually one of my challenges for like big walling is in general when I climb, I don't eat enough snacks. And it was, discussed between Bryce and I that if we're gonna do this, I need to be eating a snack at every single belay and probably drinking water every time I hit my vape.
You brought your vape up on the wall?
Dude, I was gonna ask if there's like
yeah.
tobacco, booze, like what are the, how rowdy are these portaledges,
Oh, man. PCP, DMT, LSD. No, they tell you if you have sugar on a daily basis, don't kick sugar on a big wall. If you smoke nicotine, don't decide to kick nicotine on a big wall. So I went with the things that, my vices.
Yeah.
I mean, not all of them, like I smoke a little bit of, weed here and there. I didn't bring any weed up.
I was happily a water, coffee, and food myself, but
Yeah.
It's important to maybe mention too that we had a target weight for the pigs. We were given a suggestion that one of the things that kind of screws people up on the first day is too much weight.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you lose weight as you go up, but somebody told us around 95 to like 100 pounds, I think was like ideal for success. And
Is that
so
per haul bag or
total.
Oh,
Yeah.
total.
And I think we
So
ended up going a bit above
55,
that.
almost
That's
50.
not counting your climbing gear though. So
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. There you go. Yeah.
So the haul bag I think the suggestion was like 90 pounds for the haul bag, which would be your water, your food, your camping stuff. And we were probably like more like 110, I would say. That would be a lesson that I learned was bring less weight. And I'm
Yeah.
even, like I said, I try to be an ultralight backpacker. So I guess because it's your first wall, you're just like, oh yeah, we could bring this and bring that. And then you forget the most important things like a pocket knife, but you
Yeah.
bring 2 days worth of extra food and all this other stuff. So
Yeah.
I'd say less food, a little bit more water, because we found ourselves debating whether or not we should bring an extra, another gallon. And, because we were so close to our target weight. And it's weird debating things like that. I mean, it wasn't really a debate. It was more of a discussion, but
You can definitely go a lot longer not eating than you can not drinking.
yeah.
yeah.
Well, but I think I was worried about zonking out, calorie intake, and still I brought too much snacks.
Yeah, the first time I learned like that kind of like long endurance food consumption was like big alpine objectives in the Tetons, where it's like you got 6,000 feet of vertical feet over 6 miles that you have to cover before you even start the climb.
Yeah.
And then you got to get back down. And so it was just like, all right, like how the hell are we going to do this without bonking? And it's like, you have to stop every hour and you have to eat, 500 calories and you have to drink, a liter of water. And that was a rule. It's like, you have a stopwatch and you're not hungry and you do it anyway, because if you don't, and then you get hungry, you're already fucked. It's like
Too
you're behind
late.
the ball.
Yeah.
In terms of like what actual food, I think this is a question that everybody's interested in. Everyone's like, the obvious route for dinner is like the Dries Freed Mountain House food that everyone, Max has got an iron stomach, so it doesn't affect him. But at least for me, it gives me like crazy gas, especially if I have too much sodium. So like, I think there's a lot of people with questions about like what you guys are planning on eating on the wall. And like that, I see that as like breakfast, snacks, and like dinner. Like what were those looking like?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're pretty similar on that. I mean, maybe obviously like flavor preferences and everything like that's different, but we brought a jet boil. Evan tried to say that we shouldn't, and I was like, hell no. We are gonna have hot coffee in the morning, and we're gonna have hot meals at night. That was a non-negotiable for me, and I think that was definitely the right call.
It was the right call.
So anyways, we had a jet boil. We brought freeze-dried meals for dinners. For breakfast, neither of us really were like super stoked to eat breakfast in the morning because you kind of just get going right away, so we just do. I mean, I think one of the mornings I had a breakfast, and then after that I was like, yeah, no, I can't do that again. It's just too much food. Those breakfast meals are like 800 900 calories like first thing in the morning.
So I mean, that's like, probably like the first thing to adjust there is just cutting breakfast out of your packs.
Yeah, that's where like a whole day and a half of extra food was. But I would just replace it with like a protein bar in the morning, like a RX bar, and maybe peanut butter packet or something, just get some calories, but don't like overdo it. And then literally just every single pitch, every belay, just eat something. Like I had lots of nuts. I had like fruit bars. I had Laura bars, RX bars.
Have you guys tried the Pro Meal bars?
No.
I'm gluten free and dairy free, so I'm like a little limited on what I can do. A lot of the
I'll have to send them to you. They're my favorite anyway. It's tangential, but they're sick.
Yeah, a lot of the protein bars have like whey protein, which kind of messes me up. So, but yeah, just lots of bars, nuts, like as calorie dense as you can get. So lots of fat.
I made sure to bring some gummies, beef jerky was
Some
pretty
like
important.
Haribo. What kind of gummies we talking here?
What did I have? I had like some Mike and Ike's and some some like sour gummy worms.
Nice.
I had to like fill my pockets. I know myself, and if I don't have snacks in my pockets, I'm probably not snacking. And it was so important that I snack. So at like the beginning of the day, as I would start eating breakfast or my breakfast snack, I would just be filling my pockets. And I did like a lot of Cliff bars just because they're so simple, even though they're really so unexciting, and you kind of have to just force them down at certain points. Yeah, I was really.
You're hungry.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that when you're burning that many calories, as soon as you get a little nibble, you start getting pretty hungry for sure. I made the mistake of bringing the Mountain House. I'm not sure if it was Mountain House, but freeze dried chicken pad thai, and I made it spicy every night. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. I should have known better.
Was it a mistake going down, or was it a mistake coming out?
I think the latter.
Yeah.
Coming out.
There's a song. It's like Ring of Fire. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
I went as plain as could be. I just got like the chicken and rice. Like I made sure to not go. Don't have curry on the big wall. That's for sure.
I think it was interesting, Evan, what you said about not just quitting your vices before going up a wall like that. Obviously, I mean, I think that most people are going to argue like, okay, well, handle your vices before you go on the wall. But I mean, that's not realistic for a lot of people. So I think that it's interesting. I think it's just an interesting thing to recommend. It's like, don't just quit whatever you're like, don't just, if you're a daily drinker, I guess I don't know what I'm arguing here, but don't just stop drinking the day you go up, or
don't
same
give
with
up coffee
nicotine
on the big wall.
Don't give up coffee. Like, don't make these, and that's what they say too. Like, even regardless of what the intake is, it's like, whether it's diet, like don't dramatically change your diet the day before you go up on a giant climb, because your body
it's not the time to do that.
It's not the time to do that. And I think it's just an interesting parallel to apply that to vices as well.
I feel like that's a good homage. Isn't Warren Harding's the first one to have climbed El Cap? Is that right? Is it Harding?
Yes.
Or
Harding.
Yeah, right. And he's like, there's like that famous photo of him like drinking like wine in like that like hammock portaledge, and they were like drinking booze all the time and stuff. It's a good homage of like Kyle just advocating for people like, if you're a daily drinker, man, bring 6 bottles of scotch up the nose. Okay, this is a seriously important like piece of information. But no, point taken. I think
like out Pete
absolutely.
Babrock, that dude has like so much alcohol up every single big wall. And I'm not saying that I recommend people do that. You can always quit what you're doing a bit ahead of time before the objective too. Just don't get on the objective.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't I think Jim Bridgewell, I'm probably messing up his name, but didn't he like part of the Stone Monkeys, like they would like take acid and like climb El Cap? Just like,
that does sound rad.
Godspeed, folks.
Good
I think to me that just shows their level of comfort in the environment.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're like tripping balls, just like run out, like jamming cracks. It's like, whoa.
I do aspire to be that good of a climber one day, but I do not.
Speaking of comfort, though, it pretty crazy how quickly you just attune to the wall. Like people are like, "What's it like to sleep up there? How do you go poop up there? Like, isn't it scary?" Like, and it's funny because after the first day, like you just like don't realize you're up on the wall. Like you're kind of just immune to it. Like the valley, you keep getting like a little bit better view as you go up, but like. And there are a few spots when you're all near the very top where you look down, you're like, whoa, this is awesome. But yeah, for the most part, like you get so used to being tied in that your brain knows that you're safe. Like, and so you can like walk to the edge of the ledge and go to the bathroom or sleep and then like wake up in the night and look over and see like the abyss. But yeah, like those guys that are doing acid and stuff, it's like they just lived up there, so it was like nothing different for them, you know.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting, like, point. I've never obviously like been up on like a wall like that big and consistent where there's no ledges or anything you can't get off on. But I think there's like something about just these type of sports and suffering, and whether that's like, you know, ice climbing or big walling or rock climbing or whatever, like it kind of like in the world we live in now, we're inundated with just so many like choices and so much stimulation. It's like you're trying to watch a movie on Netflix and you don't know what to choose. You know, it's like you're just like paralyzed by having too many options. Whereas like you go on these adventures and it's just like life is just broken down very simply. It's like, my world is this ledge, you know, like there's really no other option. And like, I think humans, like when there's like that form of simplicity, it's like, there's a job to get done and there's literally no other option. There's something like really freeing about that. You know, you're not paralyzed by thinking about everything or this or that. Like, oh fuck, I got to check my email. You're like, no, I'm shitting in a bag. I'm on the side of El Cap. I'm going to eat like some spicy chili. You know, it's like, it's just like your world's set out before you. And there's something so freeing and not having endless options, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's really
definitely
cool.
So I think that we've, and let Max, if I'm wrong here, I think we've laid out the general logistics of kind of.
I have one last thing I want to go over. What is the rack? What is the rack you guys are running? That's what I want to know.
I had it like very dialed down. I had a buddy who does like Naiad as Christian, and he really helped me. Like, he told me what his like Naiad rack was, and I compared that with like a couple other recommendations. But we brought a double set of totems, black to green, plus a red. Okay, so we didn't use any nuts, or actually Evan used some nuts, I think, but you could easily do no nuts, I would say. The smallest cam, we brought like the 0.1, 0.2 offset Z4 and the 0.2, 0.3, so the smallest two Z4 offsets, super useful. We use those quite a bit. I actually whipped, the only fall we had on the whole route, I took a daisy fall onto the smallest offset Z4, and it was a factor 2 on my daisy, and the piece held.
Wow.
So that had to have been at least like 4 to 5 kilonewtons, like right at its max, and it was actually upside down, so the big lobe was on the bottom. It's kind of crazy.
That's bomb.
But it held my factor 2 daisy fall. Anyways, so props to that. Double rack of totems from black to green, and then like triple red, double yellow, double number 2, double number 3, double number 4. That was it. Actually, we had triples of the finger size too, so triples in 0.3 to 0.5.
So you only brought 2 number 2s and 2 number 3s?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 2 2s, 2 3s, 2 4s, 3 1s. Actually, 3 from 0.3 to 0.75.
Nah, including the totems.
Yeah, 2 totems and then 1 Z4.
Okay. Gotcha.
And it was perfect. I would say you can definitely do it with only 2 3s and 2 4s. You just have to be prepared for like a 30-40 foot run out, but you're like leapfrogging, so you're on like 2 pieces the whole time.
Yeah.
If you're free climbing it, you could still leapfrog them and just have 2 pieces. But there's some pretty long splitter pitches of like number 3 and number 4. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, definitely triples of like some of the smaller stuff. There's a lot of splitters up there. It's inspiring climbing. Like, even though you do a lot of aid, you're just like, man, I wish I wasn't as tired, because these pitches are like 5-star pitches on their own.
So many 5-star pitches.
Wow.
So what if you want to like not logistically, like for someone who might not be so familiar with the climb itself, you know, we just talked about sickle ledge. Like, will you guys break down basically the topo of the route in terms of like the sections and like where the rests are? Give us a picture of like what that journey looks like before we actually walk down that road.
Yeah, so I would say you probably break it down best in like where you're planning to bivvy or sleep at each night would be like the most logical way, I think, to break it up. So each day, the first where you stop, and everyone's going to be a little bit different, but for the most part, the like identifiable features are sickle ledge, which is 4 pitches up. A lot of people go there just to like practice doing a sickle run, and you can rappel off really easy. And then the next feature, like when you leave sickle, you go do the stove legs, and that's just like a lot of really nice hand cracks, a lot of good free climbing, but also pretty confusing route finding, as Evan would love to explain later. And then you get to Dolt Tower, and then a couple more pitches, and then you're at El Cap Tower, and that's like the mega ledge. Like, sleep there for sure, no matter what your plan is, because it's amazing. And when you get to El Cap Tower, you can actually see the whole rest of the wall. So you can see like North America Wall, you can see like Zodiac and everything, like East Buttress and all that. So prior to that, because the nose splits it like this, and so you start out on the left side of the nose, and you're traversing right as you're doing all this that I just described until you get to El Cap Tower. And that's when you're kind of at like the rightmost portion of what you're going to do. And that's where you can see both like the other side of the wall for the first time. And then right off El Cap Tower, you do a couple notables. You do like the boot flake or Texas flake, and then the boot flake, and then the king swing are all like the 3 features immediately after El Cap Tower. And then after the king swing, you kind of move back left. So you've been moving right the whole time. Now you start moving back left. You do a couple. We did the Lynn Hill Traverse, which is shortly after the king swing, which was notable. That's where I took my daisy whip. And then you do a couple not so notable pitches, still moving left, and then you get to the Great Roof. And that's where, for the first time, like the wall's like steep, I guess. So up until that point, there's some steeper pitches, but it's mostly like lower angle until you hit that like the Great Roof pitch, or maybe even like the pitch right before that. But that's when you like really, I would say you're kind of like on the head wall at that point, and that's when you're really like starting to get the exposure. So then you do the Great Roof, another pitch or two. You're at Changing Corners is another like really notable one. And then from Changing Corners to the top, it's just like a few more pitches of just steep, good climbing.
Yeah, so we slept at Sickle, El Cap Tower. We were thinking about going to Camp 5, right?
Camp 6.
Camp 6.
We ended up going to Camp 5.
Yeah, we were told Camp 5 was actually better. And, I'll get into, another reason why we ended up going to Camp 5 as well. That's something that happened on day 2. But yeah, we definitely didn't regret that decision anyways. And then topped out on the 4th day.
Nice. Sick. So yeah, I mean, I think that having laid that kind of map out, bring us back to kind of where we left off on that story with you guys on Sickle, and kind of just let's start diving into the details.
Cool. Yeah. So, like I said, day 1, we got to Sickle. Everything was going cruiser. I was like, man, big walling's so easy. This is fun. This is great. We get like no sleep that night, get woken up super early, bunch of people at the base. So we're like, all right, let's just go. We pack up, and we just start going.